Hey everyone, thank you so much for tuning into my video. So real quick, let's jump into it. Two sides to the relationship. There's always two sides in a relationship. God is the one side, we are on the other side. Two sides to the relationship. So God doesn't just give us blessings and give us all that our heart desires without us holding up our end of the agreement. The agreement meaning to be the will of God. So God is not going to just come to us and give us the desires of our hearts, right? And we do nothing in return to give him his glory or to fulfill his will that he needs to be done on earth. It doesn't work that way. So your side, you have to do your side. And I want to use Abraham as the example. In Genesis chapter 12, we see God comes to Abraham and instructs Abraham to leave. Abraham has to take an action. He has to leave his country. But God lets him know, if you take this action and leave this country and go to a land that I show you, I will give you this blessing, this blessing, this blessing. God's going to do his part if we do our part. Now, I don't want that to seem like, oh, well, there leaves room for manipulation. There is no room for manipulation if you are fulfilling God's will. The manipulation comes into play that we think we can use if we are under or trying to fulfill our own permissive wills. If we feel like, oh, well, if I do this and if I do that, then I know God will in turn give me this. That's manipulation. That's the permissive will that we are trying to bring God, be in partnership and have a two-sided relationship with God based off our terms of the agreement. Don't work like that. We have to be in God's will, and God gives us the terms of the agreement of the relationship. We do our part, he do his part. So it's two sides to the relationship. Abraham, I like that one the best because over and over and over again, God is reminding Abraham as he has decided to follow God and take this journey, of through life at an old age, not at a young age. Abraham was already 75 years old when God told him to leave. So, and Abraham, somewhere in chapter 17, maybe, Abraham mentions that when he knew before he left his father's house that he needed to tell his wife that we have to present ourselves as brother and sister, because he knew that as he came into different lands and different territories, that these people were possibly going to take his life for his wife to take Sarah as their own. So Abraham knew before he left what he was stepping out into. He knew the dangers of what he was stepping out into. God had already gave him strategy for those situations when he came into those lands, which he very much so had to face his fears when he came into some of those lands. And as he lived through those fears, he faced the fears, he got through the moments. They took Sarah like he thought, because she was so beautiful. They took Sarah, but God on the other end made those exact same enemies bless Abraham. They had to give him all types of cattle and gold and just plenty of everything. So Abraham had to face his enemies. He had to face his fears. But on the other side of facing the fears of those that he had to encounter, God forced them to bless Abraham so greatly. And that's one of the ways that Abraham collected his massive wealth that he collected, was facing his fears, facing his enemies, and trusting that God, God was in the midst of all of it. And God, in turn, on his end, had them to bless Abraham with all the resources, all that he needed, men servants, women servants, all types of everything they blessed Abraham with. So I love this story. I love the Bible. But it's two sides to the relationship. You have to do your part. Yes, you're going to be afraid sometimes. Yes, God going to lead you blindly. You have to walk by faith blindly. Yes, you have to. But trust that God is on the other side and he's keeping his promises. He's giving you those blessings that he promised you. And in between that time, Abraham stopped to make sure he reverenced God and talked to God and got the reassurance that he needed, that he was on the right path, he was doing the right thing, he was fulfilling God's will. It got very hard sometimes. You got to take the good and the bad. But God gave him the reassurance that I'm still here, I still got you, you covered, you are protected, Abraham, I got you. And Abraham continued to do God's will that he needed Abraham to do. So, it's two sides in a relationship. Not to say that if you want God's blessings, like, I'm not trying to say that, like, kind of like manipulation, if you want to just pull God's hand to get what you want. No. But there is a predestined, God already laid out path for you that he has with blessings with your name on it. But you won't get those blessings until you accept God's will. The good and the bad, the ups and the downs of what that will may be, the whole process. You have to accept it all to receive all the goodness that God has. And I promise based off what this Bible show and what Abraham's life looked like the good outweighed the bad. He looked like he got way more blessings than he did having hard times. So trust God. Keep your part of the relationship up. Keep it going. I promise, God promise, he will keep his part of the relationship going. Build that relationship with God. Get into God's will. Start living your best life. Have a good one. See you in the next video.